everybody. This is Phil Haloka from Complete Captive Management Services. Today we conclude our three-part series on ownership and control. Today's conversation deals with identifying the labels of control versus governance. And the reason we talk about this today is many times these labels are used interchangeably, and that's not entirely correct. Governance is much like the bullseye. It's the outside of the target range. Control, on the other hand, is the bullseye. That's the objective. You want control, but most of the time you'll have to settle for governance. So let's talk about it. So governance is generally associated with mutual captives. I say that because if you are a single parent captive, you have both governance and control. In a mutual, you're likely to only have governance. Now, if you're involved in a producer-owned reinsurance captive, you may not have either of these. Okay? So it's important to understand what the underlying structure, who owns it, which should tell you what level of control or governance that you should have. Okay? So, fundamentally, a group captive will promote that it allows the members or the participants to be involved in the governance of the captive. Okay? And that will take on the views or the appearance of having board meetings and having membership meetings. Now, many times you join a captive because this is pretty exciting. Traveling to a remote city to have a membership meeting and talk about the affairs of captive insurance can be exciting for some. That is governance. The purpose of those meetings is to talk about objectives and vote on matters of importance. Okay? So, the mutual captive will also have elections amongst its members, and those elections will place people on the board of directors, or they could place people on committees. Okay? Now, procedures and policies. Well, if you're in a mutual group captive, you may have influence on language revolving around policies and procedures, such as membership requirements. Maybe you have to be a certain number of employees to be able to join a mutual captive. Maybe it's minimum premium. Maybe it's financial solvency. So there could be a lot of policy influences that could be made within policies and procedures. So, at the high level, governance really is a recommendation to do certain aspects of the operations of the captive. Okay? Keyword is recommend. Now, control is the higher authority. It is the bullseye. Okay? The buck stops with the entity or the individual making the decisions. Okay? In addition to that, most captives engage a captive manager for the day-to-day operations and for the regulatory management and compliance. The group captive, the mutual, the first test on whether you have control is if you can terminate the service agreement for the captive manager. If you cannot do that, you don't have control. You've got governance, which is good, but not control. Okay? In addition, lastly, business direction. Whoever has control can change the direction of the business purpose. So today, the ambition is to do X. Well, maybe X isn't working out for you. Therefore, those in control will change the direction for the overall success of the captive. Okay? So, control is what you want. Governance is probably what you'll settle for if you're involved in a mutual captive. And lastly, if you're in a producer-owned reinsurance captive, it's unlikely you have either of these. So just make sure you are aware of what you're investing in. Hope this was helpful. Next week, we're going to be coming to you with captive service providers.